Hi, everybody. If some of you know Wattwatchers, a number of you may not. So we basically make these devices which monitor, deliver data to the cloud for analysis and alerts and controls for consumers to manage their energy better and hopefully participate in a expanding marketplace for energy services. The CDR for energy discussion that we've heard a fair bit about this morning, in its first iteration, is obviously focused on utility billing data and the inverted commas smart meter component of that. It's worth noting that that's 3 to 4 million sites in Australia, so you've still got 5 to 6 million, with most of them with the old spinning wheel meters. And just to give you an idea of the sort of data involved, one of our devices running at full tilt at 5-second data monitoring 6 circuits can deliver something like 100,000 data points to the cloud per day. A traditional sort of smart meter model is 48 data points, 30-minute blocks, and an old meter read, it's a bit of data once every 3 months, and often not then because it's estimated anyway. So we come to the CDR discussion really looking ahead to a future where we think that there's going to be 5 to 10 years massive amounts of energy data available through the cloud, and utility billing data will not be the largest part of it. That will increasingly be just one of the boxes to tick with the data, but there'll be a lot more happening. And so in part, more broadly than talking about the CDR, we're thinking about consumer data rights in the broad and how they will apply to technologies like ours, and there are many more out there. And we just think it's inevitable that data rights are going to affect us, so we should just get engaged in it now. Sorry. One of our themes is, you really don't have to sort of reinvent the wheel too much here. Some pretty big brains around the world are thinking about consumer data rights. If Gavin were here rather than me, he's a serious Apple fanboy, and he'd have the watch and the phone and the tablet, and he gets up at 5 a.m. to get the Apple updates on the world. But these are pretty simple components of data rights that Tim Cook, he was recently in Time magazine, the Apple CEO. Importantly, the point that he makes is rights are one thing, it's then having the tools that consumers can use to get the benefit out of the data that they have the rights to that's a crucial factor. This discussion, it's the whole consumer data rights thing has come out of one process and the Productivity Commission report and that we've heard of, but it's not in isolation to the energy story that's unfolding and the energy transition and the need to accommodate increasing amounts of distributed energy resources on the grid. The two, data and the energy technologies and how grids are changing, are sort of all bound together, and we don't have solutions unless we treat them that way. So like us involved in the business of data in energy sector, in any sector, is going to be conscious of the global consumer data rights discussion. But it's just all of these things are now converging in time, and we need to sort of look at solutions that work across the board. I think you've already heard people talking about, you know, this key question of trust in the equation. You know, we kind of trust electricians to wire our houses up so that we'll get our energy services and we won't get electrocuted. We've got to a position where we are far less trusting of energy utilities, including what they're going to do with our data if they have more of it, and to what extent we want them involved behind the meter, which is essentially getting access to a lot more data. So part of this is we think you just got to flip the conversation. It's one thing for people to be looking at data that's being accumulated by a utility or a government or whoever, and they're holding it and people can't get access to it. So the discussion then is dominated by lack of trust and the desire for the conversation we think that we want to move to is that people own their data, they know it, they have some control over that, they have the tools that allow them to have that control, and then you can focus on value and value for the consumers themselves and the public interest and industry interest value that can be unlocked, because the data that is going to be most valuable, a lot of it is going to be coming from consumer-owned assets, and it's going to be unequivocal that they own the data. So we've started to, you know, think about some energy-specific principles that we'll abide by. We have a big project coming up that I can't talk too much about because it's still in the final approvals process, but it's to go out and really create an energy data hub and provide people with choice of apps and change the experience of energy with data to the core. And the idea is that there's a marketplace for energy data that works alongside the marketplace for electrons. It's really important. There's a huge amount of value here. We just have to find ways to get it right. And I don't mean Wattwatchers, we. And just, you know, in closing, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We kind of know the roadmap already. IT's already gone down this path. The discussion we've heard a bit of this morning about energy being special or having unique aspects, we don't pay a great deal of heed to that. You know, we think that energy is going to have to work the way other consumer technologies work increasingly. Thank you.